Okay. It's a very cold day. Actually, I kind of feel weird using that particular phrase in Blackfoot. I should just say it's cold. Because doesn't, I mean, even though it's used to refer to the day, it literally means the heat. So I'm saying it's a very cold heat. Any case, I'm obviously out along the Old Man River. I'm out for a little walk this afternoon. It is Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, in the lunar cycle Misamiko Gomiados, the long night's moon. And I've just finished a little marathon of report writing. Want to clear my head, get out, stretch my legs. We've had some early results from the Lethbridge Christmas bird count on Sunday, and it was a tough day for everybody out there participating in the count. The conditions were pretty rough for birding, but one of the things that came up that was surprising is that nobody found any Bohemian waxwings. That's the first time, as I understand it, that's the first time that the waxwings, the Bohemian waxwings, have been missed on the Lethbridge bird count since 2002. So that's the first time in 15 years that they weren't part of the count. And to be brutally honest, at Spopikimi, just over here where my count begins, and I go all along the river here, as you probably saw in my video if you watched it from Sunday. I go all along to a Whoop-Up Bridge way out there. My total around was more than a 10-kilometer hike on Sunday looking for birds. And, you know, to be very straightforward and honest about it, I'm pretty sure I would have found some Bohemian waxwings if the police had not ordered the berry bushes around the parking lot at Spopikimi to be removed. Now, I'm not saying that those berry bushes are the only places in Lethbridge where you're going to find Bohemian waxwings, not by a long shot. But as far as my territory goes here, the area that I had to survey, which is an extensive area of the Lethbridge river bottom, as far as my area goes, it was the best area to view Bohemian waxwings, now obliterated. So there's the first, in my opinion, the first kind of effect, you know, really kind of scientifically gauged effect of that removal of the bushes that was decided with no input from naturalists at all. So you've affected a species out there, I think, you know, more than one actually, but Bohemian waxwings for sure. If you don't have berry bushes, you're not going to have waxwings. That's one of the species that should be here, and that was a significant number of berry bushes that were just stripped off the landscape there. Anyway, it's obviously snowing here. It's been pretty snowy the last 36 hours, so I'm hoping to encounter some fresh signs of different animals. The very first thing that I want to point out here, even where I'm making this little introduction, is what could very well be an active animal burrow of some kind, probably a coyote's burrow. But, you know, the snow has not stuck around. It's warmer here than in other places. You can actually see some of the on some of the stems of grass and stuff, you know, the water, the snow is melting because there's heat coming out of this hole, right? So there's probably somebody living here, possibly some coyote. I am going to, it could be somebody else too, but it was probably dug by a coyote. I'm gonna monitor, whoop, I hadn't been aware of that particular hole. I'm gonna be monitoring that hole now. Nobody's come out in the last 24 hours or so at least, because there's no sign of it on the snow. But, you know, it does look like somebody visits. You can see there is kind of a, in here, there's kind of a depression. So I'm betting coyote, but we will find out in the future. But yeah, I got a couple hours to kill. Gonna head out this way to Shpopikami and then back. Probably go up the muff on my way home and just see what's happening out here in the snow day. All right, so I'm just making my way down here, and I've come across my first set of recent tracks through this new snow. Looks like deer trail. Probably a mule deer, considering we're so exposed out here and he's not with a herd. And I say he because I'm suspecting it's probably a male as well. Much more likely to find the males on their lonesome like this. So I'm gonna follow it a little bit, see where he leads me, if I perhaps even encounter him. Yeah, it's almost definitely a mule deer. In this stretch here, you can see where he's taking giant leaps. From here, his next set of prints, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of my paces. His next set after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5, and so on. And then he kind of picks back up here for a couple of normal paces. Yeah, so he's doing some big leaping. I also see something up here, so there could be a second deer. In which case it might not be a male. Yeah, it's another one here. This one may not be as recent though. I don't think it's made at the same time. This one seems to be a little bit more filled in with new fallen snow. Alright, I'm going to give up the pursuit of this deer trail here because he's kind of hitting high ground and going into some areas that are pretty steep and not very safe when you're walking on a bunch of snow and you can't really see where the cliff edges, where the sharper inclines are. So I'm going to back up off of this, head down that way and over toward the pond. Alright, so I'm just here by the bullberry and currant thicket on the southwest end of the pond. This is always a good place for small birds. Nobody's around this morning for small birds anyway, but I saw at least one pheasant hen running into the brush. I was going to pass by, but then I saw her and I thought I might as well check it out. I also saw, but wasn't able to videotape on the way down, it happened too quick, a lone gray partridge. Didn't get any of them on my bird count, but they're around. I was surprised to find a loner. Most of the time you come across those partridges, they're pretty big families. But yeah, other than that, there has been a couple of people pass through here. You can see it's a cross-country skier, probably another hiker. I'm not going to bother walking the west length of the pond. Just going to drop down into the forest main, head that way. Alright, here we go. I've seen her, but she's also seen me. Possible that this is the same deer whose tracks I was following up there, but I didn't notice any line where they cut down across the trail that I took below. No, it's got to be different because I just noticed there's another one out here. Let's see if I can zoom in on her. Another one watching me right out here. So she's going back to her eating. So at least a couple of them. I might kind of take it slow here and see if I can find out what they're feeding on. I've got a pretty good vantage point now. I can see at least 5 deer. There's another one just over here. So there's got to be at least 2 does with their fawns from this year. Not quite sure what they're eating here. I'm going to maybe pull out the binoculars and have a look. Well, a couple of things that it seems like they're eating, from my vantage point, have been the some of the buds, perhaps, off of the diamond willows or poplar cottonwood saplings, and maybe the tops of some tall goldenrods. A lot of geese on and off the river today. Thought I would scope out how the river's looking. Kind of a survey here before I head into the forest. Not seeing any golden eyes yet this afternoon. Oh, I may have spoke too soon. I think downstream a ways there might be 1 or 2. Watching here, I was passing by, starting to head back already, so I realized my time was already about half gone. I've seen, I think, about 5 robins cross over into the forest, and they're just perching on a tree right out here somewhere. I'm not going to be able to see them in my viewfinder, and I can't see them with my naked eye. But you might be able to spot them with their orange breasts here in this tree somewhere. Anyway, I wouldn't be surprised if they come and visit the South Pond Spring. So I'm going to stand here for a minute and see what happens. Yeah, one of the questions that I've been asking myself and students recently is, how come, you know, you can have a family of 5 deer living here in this little area of forest? Well, you know, they don't have to stay right here, but in general, you know, this area, there's these 5, there's the one that I was tracking up there, and there's probably a bunch of others. How come you can maintain a deer population down in here like this, but, you know, if you set half a dozen cows out in this same area, you're going to see a really significant impact to the undergrowth, you know, and to the forest and this whole area in general. The river, like, the cows make such a huge impact, and I don't understand why. See all these other animals out here, and you got other ungulates, you got deer, and it doesn't impact it the way cows do. And you know, then I also wonder about, well, what was it like when it was the buffalo, right? And I suspect that it still didn't have that kind of appearance that it would have if there was cows around, because cows like it down in here. You know, they like these forested areas and such. I don't think buffalo generally hang out in those areas from what I've read. So yeah, maybe somebody out there has some ideas. How come you can have big populations of deer out here and it doesn't look like they make a giant impact? They're eating all day. Yeah, next time I come out, maybe even in the next day or so, I'm gonna head down into the Owlwood where I was watching those deer, and I'm gonna look to see if I can find for sure which plants that they were eating down there. Since I know that area now, I didn't have to like chase them out of the way to go down and look at it today. I'm not in that big of a hurry. The evidence is not going to go away. So, and another mental note that I'm making to myself right now as I'm passing kind of this south of the high level bridge is along this stretch of trail here toward the end of this last summer is where one of my students and I encountered a neonate bull snake making its way toward, assumedly, wherever their hibernacula is. And so, you know, generally a snake's going to lay eggs within 100, maybe 200 meters of her hibernacula, more likely much closer. And so I'm expecting that, you know, somewhere up here in this area south of the bridge, there is a bull snake den. And we have been getting bull snake calls from the golf club here, and you know, and they're seen around the park, Elizabeth Hall, once in a while. So, and up in Heritage, I've picked some up. So yeah, there is a population down here now. I don't know where the den is, but something that happened earlier today on this hike might have given me a clue. Remember that area where I was trailing the deer, and the first deer, and he took those few big leaps, right? Now, he might have taken those big leaps because I was coming up right on him and he was going to gain some ground. Or he might have taken those big leaps because he knows there's something in that area that he doesn't want to really risk stepping on. And that could be a hole that serves as a hibernacula for snakes. Could be multiple species of snakes, but in any case, it's always possible the deer don't want to step there for a reason. You know, there was a couple of years back in Cottonwood Park, I was spending a lot of my winter studying there, following deer, and there was this one area, there was an obvious trail that the deer would go, you know, avert around this section of this trail, and I didn't quite understand what was going on there. And then one day I just decided to go down that trail myself, and very quickly found that the remains of what had been a really big hornet nest that must have been there over the summer. So, you know, the deer had learned the hornets were there and they were going to avoid that. Similarly, of course, this guy up on the hill here could have been trying to avoid something with those jumping strides. And that could be a clue to the answer to another mystery about the snakes. So it all connects. Got a good handful of golden eyes right along the ice here. And some different goose clans, I think. Further upstream. Yeah, it's a pretty nice day actually for a hike out here. Surprised there's not more people around. got to see part of the infamous Muff mountain bike trail, accessible in Lethbridge. We have a lot of mountain bike trails in our coulees here, and that might be the end of my video. We'll see, but I don't usually encounter too much from about this point on home. I just live up the top of the hills here, so swallowed a snowflake. All right, I lied. Wasn't gonna be the end of my video. Well, I didn't necessarily say it had to be. Any case, I'm walking through the neighborhood here, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, how come I don't pay attention to some of the stuff between that last little part of the Muff and when I get home? I mean, it's not like I'm completely oblivious. If there's a Merlin in town or something like that, I know about it. But I don't know, you know, this neighborhood here, Heritage, in its nature and ecology, the way that I do in the coulee. And that's part of that, you know, that's part of that kind of colonial outpost in my mind that's still there, whether I like it or not, kind of splitting up humanity and civilization on the one side and nature on the other, right? Even that name, nature, implies that split, because there's no such name in a lot of other languages. So anyway, I'm walking through here, I'm thinking about that, and then I was like, yeah, I should just take on a new project here where I spend a day every week, you know, in the neighborhood, moving around with my binoculars and my camera, looking into people's backyards. I was thinking, you know, as long as I'm not like hanging off the fence, it's fair game, right? So I could even bring a little stepping stool or something with me, you know, some kind of little toting stepping stool, so that if there's something interesting in their yard, yeah, I could set up that stool and look over easily over the fence. But then it dawned on me, you know, these fences here, these fences, you know, are not just to mark property or to keep pets and kids and stuff inside. You know, they're also really very much about privacy, aren't they? Because, I mean, even though it's slatted somewhat, you can look in there. At an angle, it's a wall, you know? It's a wall. And if you're gonna be looking like this, that means you're looking at their house, right? So in order to see through the slats, you really got to be turned looking at people's houses. It's a privacy thing, and it's an interesting one, I think, in a lot of ways, because, you know, just the size of it, like, it's privacy, but it's not, you know. It's not like we want to say, hey, we don't want anybody looking at us at all or looking into our yard or anything, and we want to be left totally alone. It's low enough that a guy can go easily put his head over the fence like Wilson on Home Improvement. It's low enough for that, but it's, you know, blatant enough to say, hey, this is our privacy here, right? So if I was to do some kind of nature study here in Heritage, you know, I got to take that into account and not be violating people's privacy. But it's pretty hard to do a study of the ecology and stuff if I don't. So interesting challenge, and just an end note that just to remind myself and everybody else that nature doesn't necessarily end at the boundary of the subdivision.